Hi, welcome to dCommerce 6 Meetup. I can't believe this is our 6th meetup already. We're very happy to invite you to find out what we've been doing at Boson Protocol for the last month since we met last time. I'm Rhian Lewis, Developer Relations Advocate at Boson Protocol. And I'm absolutely delighted to be your host for tonight. It's a huge night for us tonight because we can announce that our mainnet release is being launched at our session next week at Web Summit. We're going to be at Web Summit in Portugal, where we'll also be joined by ASICS. To talk a little bit more about the mainnet launch and what we have planned for the protocol in future, we've got 4 great panelists who we're going to meet in a minute. We have Justin Banon, co-founder of Boson Protocol, Gregor Borosa, tech co-founder of Boson Protocol, Jonas Seiferth, strategy head at Boson Protocol, and Cliff Hall, who's the tech lead on the protocol team. So, one of the really exciting things about tonight is that you've got the option to join the event with us here in Crowdcast or at our very own event space in Boson Portal, which is in Decentraland. This is our Genesis event in Portal, and we're delighted to welcome you to the space, which I think you should be able to find linked in the chat. You can. It's in the chat. Join the link, come and hang out with us in Portal and have a look at the space. We're going to be having our first conference in Portal in Decentraland soon. That'll be next month. We'll have lots of special guests and speakers at Boson Forum, so that's one not to miss. Before we meet the panelists, a couple of further announcements. In the portal tonight, if you join us there, you'll find an exclusive POAP. They were massively popular last time, and also a guest book to sign, which gives you the chance to win 500 Boson. Also, if you've been following us, you'll know that we've been running our Gleam campaign with the chance to win 1,000 Boson. So we're going to be announcing the winner of that after the panel at the end of the event tonight. So do make sure you stick around. One more announcement. We're hiring. We're looking for the very best talent to help us fulfill our vision of building a decentralized commerce ecosystem. We've got a hiring bounty program. The details will be shared in the panel, and you're going to get paid 1,000 Boson if you can help us find some of the most amazing people for our open roles at the moment, which include Global Director of E-commerce, Partnership Development Representative, Senior Blockchain Engineer, and also a General Technical Talent application. Now, no more further ado, and straight to the panel, because we want to find out everything that's been going on leading up to the mainnet launch. We want to take a deep dive into what the protocol team's been working on and why it's so important. So I'm going to ask the members of the protocol team who we've got here with us tonight to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they've been doing. So we'll go to Justin first, and then maybe the rest of you guys can jump in afterwards. Justin.
Hi Rhian, thanks for that intro, and hi everyone. So I'm Justin Banon. I'm co-founder of Boson Protocol. I've got a sort of background in what I kind of blitzscaled a billion-dollar digital voucher platform in a previous life before I started kind of going down the crypto rabbit hole and studying blockchains and digital currencies, which is actually where I met my co-founder Gregor, who was one of the teachers. And what I've been doing over the last several months, after we finished raising in the early part of the year, we raised about $36 million. Since then, I've been putting together, what I consider probably one of the best teams in Web3 and designing and building this incredible thing that is Boson Protocol. But enough about me. Let's perhaps Gregor, you can introduce yourself next.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Gregor. I'm based in Slovenia. I've been, my background is spending lots of years in banking, but I've been in blockchain for many years now, and this is one of my really personal interests of mine. Boson is something that really is making me happy to get up in the morning and work like late at night. It's something meaningful that we are doing with our lives, and I couldn't be happier to be here.
Amazing, amazing. I think we all share those sentiments. Cliff, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Certainly. I'm a software developer. I've been developing professionally since the early 80s, but been in the blockchain space since late 2017, early 2018. Wrote a book building on Ethereum with Solidity and React. I built the Avastars collectible platform, first on-chain metadata and SVG artwork collectible, and have recently been getting very focused on physical pairings with NFTs in various ways. Did Vinyl Registry, a site that releases rare vinyl with NFTs for proof of ownership. Did Scene House's upcoming contract suite for auctions of physical and digital NFTs. And now I'm very excited to be here working with the Boson Protocol, which is really taking NFTs and physicals to an even further dimension, and something that is going to be engaging going forward. So like Gregor, I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing. And Jonas?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Jonas. Originally have a background in economics and was the first employee at Luxo, which is kind of this layer one around creative economies, and did things there around kind of inception of another layer one, and joined Boson about a year ago, and have been kind of heavily involved in the protocol work as much as the strategy work. And yeah, I can only kind of repeat the sentiments from Cliff and Gregor about kind of how exciting it is to solve this problem of connecting on-chain and off-chain worlds.
Amazing. And of course, this is just a small fraction of the team that we have here tonight, because we can't fit everyone into one giant panel. Justin, do you think you could say a few words about some of the other amazing people who we have working on the protocol?
Sure. So yeah, we have heading up the sort of the protocol and mechanism design. We have Aditya Askangoa, who is actually works also for the Ethereum Foundation, designing the consensus mechanism for Ethereum 2. So incredible talent that we've got, designing the real core of Boson. Then on the game theory, we have Dr. Akaki Mamagashvili, who is an algorithmic game theory postdoc, world expert on algorithmic game theory, who is designing the whole game theory at the heart of Boson. We also then have Nick Mudge, the author of EIP 2535 Diamonds, who is aiding us with the sort of whole smart contract architecture and design. And then we also have our CTO, Misha Tuffield, who is a PhD in computer science and has worked on some sort of notable projects such as token cards. So, and again, but really strong developers as well, and others working on the heart of Boson Protocol.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what everyone else has said. It's a pretty awesome thing to be working with a team like this. And I'm going to risk Gregor's connection. I know we can't see him, but we're hoping we can carry on hearing him. Gregor, obviously with the mainnet launch coming up, we'd like to find out a little bit about version 1 that we're going to be releasing. So in a nutshell, what is Boson Protocol V1 and what does it do?
Thanks, Rhian. Well, Boson Protocol V1 is something that's been in the making for quite some time, and it's now finally matured. It's sort of the first step at this problem that we have. It is enabling trust minimized way of how you can trade physical goods and things within a blockchain or decentralized systems. It is the focus of it was to be very automated. You don't need anybody in the middle or above you, between the buyer and seller to make sure that they agree and they follow the rules. It's all in smart contracts. It's based on game theory, but it's sort of, as with everything, it's the first version of it, and it's quite complex, so it's perhaps sometimes difficult to explain to other people. Though for us, it's now something that we know by heart in the middle of the night, everything that's possible and all. And we are looking forward to make the next generation much improved on V1.
Perfect. Does anyone else want to chime in there about V1?
Yeah, I mean, just to say that V1 was, very much something that Gregor and I developed with a small group of, I guess experts on game theory, etc. And as we deploy it, it's a great thing to deploy it. We're working on the next version. And so, it's great to deploy and also to, to see what happens when you assemble, this incredible collection of this kind of incredible brain trust, then how you can also move things forward.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to put Cliff on the spot here. I'm going to ask you a real explain it to me like I'm 5 questions. So I know a lot of people in the community who are listening are going to know about NFTs in the context of perhaps buying artwork on OpenSea. Obviously, we can use NFTs for a lot more than just JPEGs. So can you go into a little bit of depth about our NFT vouchers and how they work in the context of Boson?
Yes. So this is where we're kind of pushing the limits a little bit, because these vouchers don't just represent a physical item; they represent a process of buying an item, and that's a physical that can arrive at your house and things like that. So it's a little bit different from buying a CryptoPunk. Let's say you're a seller and you would like to sell, say, 50 hoodies, and you've got this merchandise, and you kind of think that it'd be cool to do it in the metaverse, to actually, put it, into Decentraland, let people buy things here. So, or CryptoVoxels or any other metaverse project. That's kind of an important thing about the protocol is any metaverse is where you could buy these things. So you're a seller, you want to sell in the metaverse. And so you've got your 50 hoodies. You need to let the world know they're on offer. So what you're going to do is create a voucher set. And this is in the lingo of the NFT, there are a couple of stripes of NFTs. They're 1155 standard, which an NFT, it can be multiples. Like if in crypto art, when they have a 30 edition of a piece of art, they do an 1155 typically. So you say, okay, I've got this NFT and there are 50 of them. Now that represents these 50 hoodies that we're going to sell, and we got the price and we got the name of the hoodie and all of that stuff and that's the NFT for the voucher set. So now we got this offer. Now, what do we do with it? Well, that's where the Boson Protocol, like you're in the metaverse and you get this thing that you can roll up to a store and say, hey, those hoodies look cool. I want to buy one, right? Well, in order to see them there and see that there's an offer and interact with it, you got to have that voucher set. So you say, okay, well, I like one for myself and what the heck, I'm going to get one for my friend too. So let me have a couple of those guys. And so now what's going to happen is the inventory, that voucher set is really kind of like inventory. This is the 50 hoodies we have for sale. So we're gonna burn a couple of those guys. They don't exist anymore, but we're going to give the holder now is going to get this voucher that's a 721 NFT, the other stripe of NFT that is a one of one. Each NFT is just one. So here you got this voucher for the hoodie. Oh yeah, you bought one for your friend. So you actually have two of these 721s, right? These vouchers. Now those are NFTs. You could sell them on OpenSea if you wanted. Let's say that there was an event, there was this crazy Boson Portal launch event, say, and you just happened to be there and you like nicked some crazy merch and you're like, yeah, I got these vouchers, I can get this stuff, right? But what I can also do, if I want, is flip them on the OpenSea. Those vouchers are a right to actually make that purchase that that connects back to that offer that the seller had. So at some point, somebody, the holder of that voucher, you're going to probably like transfer that one voucher over to your friend, right? You bought one for your friend, now it's in his wallet. He goes on with it, and so we're going to go to a website to redeem these things and set the whole process of getting the physical thing on the way to the house going. But that's the essence. That's how the NFTs, vouchers, and voucher sets play into this whole connecting the blockchain to the metaverse.
Perfect. I think explain it to me like I'm 5 was a little bit ambitious, but that was kind of definitely explain it to me like I'm 10 or 15 maybe.
I don't know these days.
Yeah, these days,
know.
absolutely true. Jonas, I could see you nodding along with that, and I know obviously you've been really heavily involved with the protocol. Can you just expand a little bit on what V1 can be used for? And there's this thing called conditional commit. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So maybe staying with what Cliff touched on is kind of this idea of selling physical products in the metaverse using NFT vouchers, and especially kind of our own product, Boson Portal, right? Kind of the space I hope most of you are in tonight. And so this will be kind of the major use case of this protocol version, enabling the connection of these two worlds, kind of the physical and the metaverse. And we added kind of some features to our protocol design, especially kind of to support this use case. And one of them is conditional commit. So conditional commit is, you can think of it as kind of exclusive offers based on NFTs. So for instance, maybe let's say you want to sell something exclusively in the metaverse, in Portal, to somebody that owns some NFT, for instance, that is part of some NFT community, right? I think what did Cliff had as an example, kind of maybe like Bored Apes, right? Maybe there's kind of Bored Ape merch, and the Bored Ape community is just selling this merch amongst themselves. So to buy this physical good, essentially, to buy the NFT voucher, you have to own the Bored Ape NFT. And this is conditional commit. And what it allows us to do is kind of to have these exclusive offers for things based on kind of the NFTs you own. So this, for Portal, for instance, this could be kind of proof of attendance patches, solving quests, these kind of things that then will unlock exclusive offers to the people that have this NFT. And other than conditional commit, we also added support for different tokens. So we're going to support DAI, Boson, and ETH for payment, which will be quite interesting. I don't know, there has been kind of a lot of discussions recently on Twitter that everything seems cheaper when you price it in ETH. So maybe we can riff off that a bit in Portal.
Yeah, absolutely. We've touched on some massively complex themes here, especially the way game theory underlies everything. Obviously, with a project this complex, auditing and security are going to be super important. So Gregor, if you can still hear us all right, maybe you could just tell us a bit about the audit process on the project. Have we been audited yet?
Yeah, thanks, Rhian. Well, if we are building a future of commerce infrastructure, right, security is something that is not an obvious or a trivial thing to do. We pay a very big amount of energy into making sure everything is secure, and if we've done audits even in between our development and now before release, actually we are undergoing 2 additional security audits. So this is a very important thing for us, and we are quite comfortable at where we are. For example, we have about, I think the last number I saw was 59% test coverage of all code. That's something that is not easy to achieve, but it's something that as infrastructure of this caliber should strive for, right? It's also something that could be very costly if it goes wrong, but I think we are as serious as possible about this topic, and we also will launch a bug bounty immediately after launching, and this will enable everybody to find, well, basically to incentivize the community to try to help find any bugs that are out there. And yeah, we take this as serious as possible, and we are quite confident in what we are doing. It's not something security that you hope for the best, right? You need to keep this in your mind with every line of code that you write. It's quite a responsible job to do.
Absolutely, that code coverage figure is awesome, and of course we'll be able to announce more about the bug bounty at our next meetup. We've talked a lot about version 1, but of course version 1 is far from being the end of the story. We're seeing it very much as a stepping stone towards version 2 of the protocol, which we're expecting to release in the first half of next year. We're already working flat out on V2. So why? What is the goal behind V2 development, and where are we currently at? So maybe Justin, you'd like to answer this.
Sure. If V1 is a proving that you can use blockchains, various NFTs and game theory to automate transactions between buyers and sellers, sort of commerce transactions, then V2 has a far sort of loftier goal in terms of actually creating a kind of like tokenized economy of things. So rather than just having transactions that are kind of locked in a database as you do with sort of Amazon, etc., V2 takes those transactions out of a database, wraps them in tokens, and perhaps we can talk about those various types of tokens, but enables things to kind of flow around DeFi infrastructure in a very similar way to the way that Ocean Protocol enables data to flow around DeFi infrastructure. And in fact, we leverage the architecture of Ocean Protocol quite heavily. Trent, the co-founder and CTO of Ocean, is a advisor, investor, and sort of mentor. So V2 is about enabling this tokenized economy of things.
Great answer. And Jonas, you're on top of a lot of the finer detail of the differences between V1 and V2. Do you want to just unpack some of those?
Yeah, I think for V2, we really kind of found a design that kind of makes things 3 to 10 times as efficient as beforehand. And this came fundamentally from kind of one design methodology that we went with, which is in V1, we had this more pessimistic approach to designing this exchange mechanism. So this is kind of also more of a classic kind of blockchain application development methodology, which is kind of everything, every step of, for instance, for us, the exchange should happen on chain, and every event should kind of be logged back on chain. And then with V2, what we found is going towards an optimistic methodology, which basically says that you don't need kind of to have proof of everything as long as everything goes well. So having this optimistic design methodology makes things a lot simpler and a lot easier and a lot more intuitive for users as well. And with this kind of design methodology to design it around, rather than always assuming everything goes wrong, our base assumption is things goes well until somebody complains, right? Until there is an issue. That really helped us. And I recently read like an article from the Optimism team, and they had a great line about it, right? Like they do optimistic rollups, which is kind of a similar design approach. And they said you don't need to cash a check. You don't go to a court, right? You only go to court if the check bounces. And this is kind of a similar approach that we're taking here. So only if an issue arises, you need to raise a dispute and you need to kind of go for proving that things happened. If everything goes well and we follow this assumption and nobody complains, we can just kind of execute. Everything goes well, we can kind of just settle the transaction, kind of what we call optimistic settlement. And from this design methodology, a lot of kind of the advancement of V2, the flexibility that we're going to see, the different use cases we can enable, and in the end, kind of this open tokenized economy of things comes from.
Yeah, we could talk for literally hours about the principles underlying optimistic settlement. I'd love to, but we have to move on. And I'm going to go back to Justin for a minute about the whole principle of this digiphysical exchange and the current kind of metaverse commerce scene is kind of on fire at the moment. So I just want to ask you, we've talked about the logistical side of V2. What's the kind of ecosystem side? What's the demand side for this? Are you seeing demand for this?
I mean, our ecosystem approach was initially sort of philosophical and theoretical. We're not trying to recreate like an Amazon by creating like a decentralized monolith, to replace centralized ones. And so we had this sort of ecosystem approach where Boson is this core, like almost like TCP/IP for commerce, if you like, with a number of core components that make that work more efficiently, and then we would foster this ecosystem. And so that was the theory and philosophy, and that still holds. However, now we have this other factor, which is this suddenly this enormous demand has switched on. So we can't actually satisfy that demand by any other approach than giving people tools to build things themselves. And so, yeah, we've seen probably, well, definitely the last 6 months, but just in the last 3 months, this demand for the Boson tools, and that's why we made the decision to sort of launch on V1 and launch into Portal, etc. And I think that is just going to really now drive our strategy of building tools to enable this ecosystem to form, because it would be impossible to do anything else and meet the demand.
Absolutely. And given that we're focusing heavily on tech in this panel, I'd like to take a deeper dive into the idea of open tokenized economies, and what this idea of things, money, and data means. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Justin, or if Gregor wants to talk about it. Maybe you first, Justin. You could talk about this things, money, data, and then maybe Gregor could dive a bit deeper into the thing tokens.
Sure. I mean, my path into blockchain was through, I kind of studied, did a master's in like digital and got really into network effects and platforms, and the power of platform business models to disrupt the sort of then incumbent business models. And one of the things that blockchains enable are these new business models. And whereas the first generation blockchains were kind of like just platform built on a blockchain, if you look at things like OpenBazaar, etc. And actually, if you're going to build a platform, do it on a centralized database. It's far more performant. But typically, when you get these new pieces of technology, you get the opportunity for new business models, new design patterns, and that's what you see with blockchains. If you look at the infrastructure of DeFi, you've got this tokenized sort of economy and sort of money flowing in this permissionless way using all of this sort of infrastructure. And then you look at something like, I guess, Ocean Protocol, where you've got this new asset type, which is data, again, repurposing DeFi. Boson uses that same approach to repurpose DeFi to enable the tokenized asset things to flow across it. And so that's very much like the difference between having like a closed market economy and an open free market. And we turn like real world things into almost like liquid digital marketplaces. So if you think similar to commodities markets where you can go and buy pork bellies or cocoa, etc., you can do that on an open market and trade these things like digital assets. That's the real heart of the Boson design pattern. So we represent real world items as, well, I'll let Gregor go into the different token types, but essentially what we do is free these assets from closed platforms and enable them to kind of be tokenized and flow over DeFi.
Amazing, amazing. And Gregor, can you just expand a little bit on that, please? This idea of particularly of thing tokens.
Yeah, it's actually rather interesting, if you're a geek, how this turns out to be the way it is and how it will look in the future. So maybe some of the core parts of Boson would live on their own without any tokens and such, but it actually would be shooting ourselves in the knees, because these ecosystems that are decentralized and the standards in the tokens really bring such new possibilities that were just unimaginable before, right? We are using NFTs for vouchers as a claim on redeeming them for a good or service, and that is basically tied to a particular instance of the trade between a buyer and a seller, and that are supported by NFTs, and they have some properties that are that pertain to NFTs, and it basically gives us a natural connection to the NFT ecosystem. But if you look on the other hand, think tokens, these are something that don't exist in V1 yet, but are coming into V2. So if you think about how useful and versatile NFTs are and how great economies are surrounding them already, they have some shortcomings too, right? They are unique. That means that pricing and liquidity around them are much harder to do, as is well explained in trends from Ocean Protocol blog, if you want to read into those differences. So pricing is much harder with NFTs. It's not like you would trade an apple for an apple. It's more like trading one particular specific apple that you hold in your hand with all the shapes and properties that it has. It's much unlike any other apple, right? So it's very hard to do things more financialized around it. And think tokens are going to be used in Boson along NFTs to improve Boson, or to leverage some other principles, especially around price discovery and liquidity. So a think token gives someone an option to purchase a thing, and the thing for us is any good or service. It can be physical, but it might not be physical. It might be something else as well. It can be digital, it can be on-chain even, so different natures of things. And these thing tokens gives you an option to purchase that thing just by owning a standard fungible token, say ERC20 token that was minted in a specific supply, especially for this particular thing, right? So you create a currency almost around one thing, and you get with it, you have fungible tokens surrounding your thing, and which means it's like a whole DeFi world opens around that particular thing. So you bring it to life and you show it to the ecosystem that is liveliest in the most liquid systems, right?
Yeah,
I hope some of this makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. This idea of bringing liquidity to things which currently aren't liquid and plugging them into this whole DeFi ecosystem is amazing. We're going to move shortly to talking about use cases for all of this, but despite the fact that we're rapidly running out of time, I'd quite like to get Cliff's perspective. Again, some things occurred to me when you spoke before about the NFT vouchers, Cliff, and this idea of purchasing physical things being a core component of Boson. How do you see this playing out in the future? We're probably going to have to limit this, I'd say, to no more than about 3 or 4 minutes, despite the fact, again, it's like a topic for half an hour. But could you just give us a little run through of how you see all this playing out?
I think you're on mute, Cliff.
Okay, so
Can hear you.
talking about the direction of NFTs and where they're going to evolve, we're kind of pushing up against the edge of that right now with something that we're doing, and I run into it time and time again on previous projects where an NFT, according to the spec, all the information that describes it is static. And because we're about decentralizing things, people don't want to have to go to your server to get that information, and it's too big for the blockchain. So we put it on a decentralized file network like IPFS. And so that means that we have to have that information and put it on there so that when we mint the NFT, we can tell the NFT where that metadata is, right? So it has to pre-exist. And so that kind of limits what you can do with NFTs to this kind of static way. If we could have a standard that would allow us to ask the contract for the metadata every time we display it, we could have dynamic metadata. And like with our vouchers, I mean, a state, you start a dispute and you're going through these various states of resolution and so forth like that, that could represent dynamic metadata, like things that change about the NFT, but it's still data that comes from the contract and it's decentralized. We're right now with our vouchers, we will have to serve that data because it has to be generated dynamically, and that's centralized, not decentralized. So what's got to happen is we've got to push the standard of NFTs a bit to include this so that we can do these things that we want to do and still keep it decentralized.
Great explanation. I think at Boson, obviously, we're all geeks, but it's probably time to stop digging into a lot of the technical stuff now and talk about some of the amazing use cases that this stuff is going to enable in the future. So this is like a quiz round. I want everyone to jump in and talk about some of their favorite use cases that this technology is going to be able to facilitate in future. Quick fire round. Who's going first?
I can give a short one. I think kind of Boson Protocol as a tools for DAOs will be really interesting for DAOs to interact with the physical world. So for instance, the purchase we did of the Dolce & Gabbana suit, or what Pleaser DAO recently did around buying the Wu-Tang album. And so kind of this functionality of all of a sudden allowing these new types of organizations interacting with the real world and with real world assets is something that I think is going to be great, right? You can imagine things like decentralized brands that are already popping up left and right. So it seems like nice tooling for these kind of use cases.
Yeah, I mean, that's a kind of conversation that we had not too long ago. It is that quite fundamentally, if you see a DAO as like a brain, right, then you know, a data oracle like Chainlink is almost like sensors, right? They are sensing the real world and feeding information to that DAO. But you also need like actuators, right? So you need hands to be able to affect the real world. And so at a really fundamental level, that's what it is, right? It's a way for decentralized, you know, smart contracts or DAOs to be able to affect the physical world in a reliable way. Yeah.
Anyone else favorite use cases?
I kind of think that it's going to be interesting in games. Like Decentraland shows us, like, we can have a metaverse where we can all kind of gather in together, you know, as Second Life did a decade ago or more. But it is, you know, games, you know, that we play, and they're like, we buy things or we grind to level up and get things that we have. And, you know, Jonas mentioned that this whole conditional commit thing where we could, you know, if you own this thing, then you can buy this other thing, right? The idea that, like, okay, my leveled up character may actually allow me to access like physical stuff that, like, you know, like that jacket that my character wears or whatever, you know, I might be able to get that with the modifications I've made to it and things like that. And I think that that's what excites me most is the possibility for connecting these digital worlds that we're creating with the physical world. I recently had a problem with vans. I love Vans. Does anybody wear Vans? Vans are great, right? And they've got this customizer where you can go in and drop in an image, and you can customize a stripe around the shoe. You can do all of this stuff, right? So I had this subduck, and I was like, I love it. This is great. I've got to get this on some shoes. So I designed some incredible shoes. I was so pumped that I was going to have them by my birthday. And it didn't happen because the image, they were able to find it on the internet. So they automatically flagged it as copyright violation, right? So then I had to, go through all kinds of hassles with them to try it over Twitter and email to get them to give me a form where I could explain why I actually own this thing. And I give them the links to my OpenSea link where I own that subduck and everything, right? But then they because the conditions were unclear on the subduck's website, it wasn't clear that I had commercial rights, which they require to do the printing, right? And so ultimately I went back and forth with them, and I still don't have the shoes, right? And it just infuriates me, because here was this, I wanted to connect these two things, this amazing blockchain asset that I have with these amazing things I was going to put on my feet. Boson is going to help make that happen. There's going to be, because Vans and subducks could get together, right, and figure out something, but they haven't. And, so sad for them, because there's a huge opportunity here that Boson is going to give them. And maybe when V2 is there and we can hand them this API and we can say, connect your designer to this and let me buy them, then it will happen.
Right, Gregor, I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to make that happen.
Gregor, I don't know how you're going to follow that, but favorite use case?
I think we lost Gregor.
Okay, that was brilliant. Last use case to end on, because it kind of shows that we're building this product this whole protocol that's going to make life better for people, and finding a real life use case like that'll improve the lives of the team, everyone else. Can't say more than that.
I'm seeing hashtag shoes for Cliff over here.
Exactly. We're gonna start running out of time soon, and I do want to take some audience questions, but I'll just direct one last question from me to Justin, which is about the roadmap. What are the key moments? What are the time frames coming up? We've talked a lot about what we're doing, not so much about when we're doing it. If you could just give us a top line on that before we move to questions.
Sure. So we're releasing V1 in November, whilst in parallel working on V2. So V1 showcases what the capabilities of Boson Protocol are, but then really we're just focusing on building out this V2 with SDKs that are going to enable all of these builders to build what they're asking us, telling us that they want to build, and that we're looking at for Q2, whilst again in parallel being on this path to full decentralization, which is going to be a multi-year sort of expedition there. And so we have a busy few weeks ahead, presenting at Web Summit in Lisbon, and also our upcoming portal launch, which I know Rhian, you're going to talk a bit more about.
Absolutely. Great. And of course, goes without saying that you can follow us on all our socials for updates. And there's so much happening. Please follow us, participate. Just it's too exciting to miss. Now we've got loads of audience questions. Some of them are literally amazing questions that are going to prompt really long responses. So I'm tempted to say we're going to maybe answer this in the form of a Medium post, but we'll take some quick fire ones first. And one of them is a question that we've talked about a lot, which is about the current high gas fees on Ethereum. So I don't know who wants to take that. What are longer term plans to mitigate the effects of Ethereum's high gas fees?
Sure. Do we still have Gregor with us, or?
We lost him.
Sure. I mean, this is a subject that is really central to, the tech team, and something we're putting a lot of thought into, I think, as are many teams. Cliff, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about, some of the considerations for, solving this problem.
Sure. I mean, there are a number of L2 solutions that are emerging, and Polygon is pretty promising at the moment because it can work as a standalone chain. You can deploy an NFT project there, and all of the NFTs just live there forever. Or you can go like full L2, where you also have the contract over on Ethereum mainnet. And then you have a bridging mechanism that moves changes between them to keep them in sync. And so what you can do to leverage an architecture like that is basically allow the costly operations to happen on the cheap sidechain, Polygon, and then allow the results of the state changes. Let's say you've got a whole bunch of transactions that do a lot of state changes. Well, they run up a lot of gas if they're done on the mainnet, but if they're done on a side chain, then all we're concerned about is the end result of the state. So you have to have a way to keep those two in sync, and then there's some cost involved infrastructure wise in terms of being able to do that bridging. But that's, it's evolving so rapidly. I mean, that's just tell me like I'm 5.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
What's the architecture thing? But, in terms of like actual solutions, this is a good one to hold off, to assess the impact of holding off first.
Yeah.
How deeply is our architecture going to be impacted if we don't decide on a particular solution right now out of the gate?
Absolutely.
If we can defer it, that's great, because stuff is moving really fast.
Yeah.
But we're going to do this. We're going to make transactions cheaper, and we're going to make it so that interacting with this is not the part that keeps you from getting your shoes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Emilio, for that. And that also answers another question we had about Boson and other networks. We've got some amazing long form questions from Kyle. Kyle, thanks for that. I think we're going to do a Medium post for those, because they truly are great questions. And I think we've got time for one more, which is about Facebook from PG. So Facebook changed their company name to Meta. So they've talked about becoming a Metaverse company. They're planning on going big in the Metaverse. Will that have any negative impacts on Boson? Maybe, Justin, you'd like to talk about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that it's the prospect of having a Facebook-owned metaverse is a really scary one. If you think that we're going to be spending increasingly more time in this like digital universe, can you imagine having that universe owned by Facebook, extracting, controlling our actual world that we live in? And we're not the only ones to think that way. There's a huge open metaverse economy movement, and Boson Protocol is a core piece of technology to ensure that we have open commerce within the metaverse that's free from extraction and control, and that can enable people to kind of be free in this digital world rather than imprisoned. So you might see some you might see some Zuckerverse is a Suckerverse tweets from me coming up shortly.
Awesome. And I think we'll just squeeze in one more question. Do we have plans to launch on other metaverses? BitCountry is an example that Emilio has given, but obviously there are many other metaverses. Jonas, do you want to jump in and answer this one?
Sure. So as part of kind of our go-to-market strategy is building our first kind of metaverse commerce use case in Decentraland, being Portal. But then what we see happening is actually using this infrastructure and essentially building tools for using Boson Protocol across multiple metaverses and also other games. So what we're looking to do there is kind of go into these metaverses, supply this tooling, maybe build our own space as kind of the next step after launching Portal in DCL.
Awesome. Now, we have got a load of questions. The thing about writing a Medium article with some of these answers in is not an empty promise. I think we'll do that as some kind of FAQ because literally we have run out of time. So with 2 minutes left to go, I'm going to wrap up the panel part of this, say thank you to all the amazing panelists, and thank you to everybody for listening to the panel. I've got a few final announcements to make. Special thanks for everyone who's joined us in the portal. Hope you've been able to mint the PO app. If you haven't, then get people's take in the chat now before we go. I hope you've had a great time over in Portal. Come back soon. November the 18th, we have the Boson Forum event that I mentioned before. And we also have several product drops coming in Portal after launch. You're going to be able to buy physical products in the metaverse as physical NFTs in Portal. So come back soon. And the moments that I know some of you have been waiting for, finally, as we move towards Boson Protocol launching on mainnet and the Portal launch, we're celebrating by giving away some awesome prizes. This is just the first one. So we had over 7,000 entries in our first Gleam campaign. Only one person, of course, can win that 1,000 Boson prize. And the winner is someone with the handle at kick_Gary, KIK_Gary. So if you're listening, congratulations. Everyone else, hope you've really enjoyed the evening. Come back soon, and thanks again so much for being here.